Welcome to K-State Online. I am Mason Voth. That is Drew Galloway here on a Wednesday. And I know everything's been kind of weird for everybody lately. You're like, oh, we're not getting as much from you here. There's a reason for that. I've a lot going on right now, life-wise. So we had some family stuff last week that just carried in this week. And then in the middle of all of that, we all got sick in my family. So my wife on that would have been Thursday night. And then Friday night, trying to put my daughter to bed, and she throws up all over me. That was a fun first time experience as dad, because they're, you get spit up on when they're a baby, and it's like, it's just like milk. It doesn't register the same. I was fearful of when that very first, like, this is a genuine child now, and it is what they've eaten, like gross stuff. And it finally happened to me. And then at that point, I knew it was only a matter of time until I also got sick. But I kept fighting and fighting. And then it hit me pretty hard about 4 o'clock on Saturday. And I didn't see a single minute of the K-State Houston game. I slept straight through it. I felt terrible. And after about 24 to 36 hours, I got to feeling better. And now I'm at 100%. And we got some other things that we have to finish up family-wise this week. And then back to normal starting Saturday, which means, I get to be in Lawrence, Kansas, and Allen House. So Drew and I will be there on Saturday as K-State tries to stop the bleeding once again on this losing streak that they've put together in the start of Big 12 play after taking down Cincinnati. Nothing has gone their way. And what I wanted to point out here is that Jerome Tang's philosophy that he keeps kind of preaching about with how you need to build a winner and all these things that he wants to do. He's got all these different things. You want to retain your best players. So retention is a big thing. He talks about it a lot. This team brought back all of these different guys. That's significant. Okay. Obviously, Jerome Tang wants to recruit at a very high level when it comes to high school recruiting. We see, Nate Ament, they released his final 11. K-State was a part of it. They've tried with all these other big name guys in high school recruiting. They want to get those immediate impact type of high school players. Jerome Tang is trying to do that. He also wants to be, obviously, pretty good in the transfer portal and get players there that can elevate your roster and also give you some depth. And what a lot of people see right now for Jerome Tang in K-State basketball is not retaining players, not landing big name high school recruits, and not providing well in the transfer portal. But Drew, what if I told you that there is a K-State basketball team that is doing all three of those things? Would you have any idea of what I'm talking about?
I believe that you'd be talking about the women's basketball team.
You would be correct. I would be talking about the K-State women led by Jeff Mittie, because he is doing all of those things. The K-State women are once again a team that should be in the top 10. Again, the Associated Idiots of America, the AP, just dogging the Cats for no reason. It is because K-State hasn't played a ton of people that have turned out to be good to start conference play. But they've killed everybody, and that's what the best teams in women's college basketball do, is they beat the crap out of everybody, and they have maybe two or three other teams that can play on their level. So far, K-State has handled most of those. So the K-State women are 17-1 and 5-0. And I highlight this because I did get to thinking about it the other day, and everybody, is obviously, for good reason, on Jerome Tang about not coming through on some of these things. But the real question would be, does it work? Like, even if he's able to get to that point, like if he's able to put his plan fully into place, does it work? And whether intentional or not, like, you can look at Jeff Mittie's roster and the way things are going right now, and he is doing basically all three of those things. The roster retention is obviously the biggest one, because the big news coming out of last year was that Aoka Lee was going to come back for another year. So she is back this season, leading the team in points per game at 17. And then retention there as well. Serena Sundell back, leading the nation in assists, doing great things there, and scoring almost 13 a game. So she's the second leading scorer. Jalen Glenn back, Terrence Sides, a freshman last year with some promise. And again, this would be a comp to like David Castillo, where Terrence Sides had some struggles last year. Obviously, everybody would agree on that, but she's obviously better for it, and she takes a jump to where now she's playing good basketball this year. She's just on the cusp of scoring in double figures every game. She's at 9.5 a game, so she makes that jump. You retain players there, and really a lot of the roster is the same from last year. And I understand women's college basketball isn't as portal crazy at the moment as the men's game. But I can also willingly admit some of that might be my ignorance to the rest of the women's game. And I just know what Jeff Mittie has done to be able to keep his roster intact. But the transfer portal is out there. And as many people are aware of, if you've watched a single minute of K-State women's basketball this year, they have also gone to the transfer portal and made their roster better there with a player that, we talked a lot about this offseason with what K-State was bringing in from guys that they scored this and they shot this from here and they did it here at this smaller level. They're making the jump up. Tamara Poindexter is doing that at K-State, where in 3 seasons at Tulsa, she averaged 12 points a game, 16, and then 21. From 3, she got it up to over 32% last year. K-State brings her in, and what is K-State banking on? That they need a player like her, that she's going to be able to make that transition, and that certain aspects of her game are going to improve. And that's exactly what's happened. She's shooting 37% from 3, her best percentage of her career. She's dropped down to 12.5 points per game, but K-State doesn't really need that from her. And she's back over 2 assists a game, which is right around her average mark. So that's all happening. And my last point here, Drew, and then I'll let you hop in here, because I talked about the high school recruiting. We just mentioned Terrence Sides, who obviously great family background in terms of athleticism and everything that goes on there. But K-State is not slowing down their foothold that they have in women's recruiting in the area, because they also have landed a top 10 player in the upcoming class in Jordan Spicer. That happened. I think she committed the day of the Arizona football game, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
Sometime in September, she committed. It was a big deal at the time. Her rankings have only gone up across all the recruiting sites that are doing women's basketball rankings now. And she currently sits at number 6 in the country in our On3 rankings, the number 1 shooting guard, number 1 in the state of Missouri, out of Warrenton. So that is what is going on here. Jeff Mittie is doing everything that that Jerome Tang says that he wants to do, and Jeff Mittie is doing it, and it's led to him having another really, really good team that I think is the best in the Big 12, despite the fact that, all the associated idiots of America that are making the polls are too busy following along with TikTok stars and people that have been in the portal 40 times at TCU to decide that TCU is the better basketball team. So tell me why I'm wrong on any of that, Drew.
No, I don't think that you're wrong. I was going to say it's not a hard philosophy, because, I mean, it sounds simple when we say that. Like, retain your players, have good high school recruiting, and then just fill in holes in the transfer portal. K-State men's basketball under Jerome Tang has done none of those. They've, like, you could say that they filled their holes year 1, but that's because they had so many holes to patch. So I think that you kind of look at that and it's like, okay, maybe they haven't had good high school recruiting. We thought that one of the 3, if not all 3, of Day-Day Ames, RJ Jones, or Buddy Rich, like, that they could all kind of become something. Day-Day Ames and RJ Jones have left after a year. RJ Jones is redshirting on a not good TCU team. So that kind of shows what TCU thinks of him. Day-Day Ames is in a terrible situation at Virginia and has been slightly better. And it's because he's playing like 1 more minute. And I think he's averaging 1 more point per game so far this season. And is probably a candidate to transfer again, because Virginia is just a mess all around. Buddy Rich has given K-State some good minutes, but is in the doghouse now and hasn't played in the last 2 games. And I'm honestly not sure if he's going to play again at K-State with how it's sounding.
You never know. It sounds like some guys might not ever step foot in Manhattan again, and then all of a sudden they're playing 30 minutes the next week.
Yeah. So playing time roulette with Buddy Rich, who knows?
Which,
David,
real quick, that probably highlights just how many issues are spread throughout this
yeah.
team, that you need so many bodies to play a basketball game. And if, it seems like, okay, well, this guy doesn't seem to be doing the right thing, and now this one's not doing the right thing. Like, you got to have guys to play, though. So, yeah, and I think that's one of those things that we're seeing.
And then David Castillo, we all kind of anticipated him having a lot of growing pains because he's a smaller guard playing in the Big 12 as a freshman. But that one right now is kind of looking like it's a little bit bleak in terms of evaluation. So I think that their just whole evaluation process needs to be scrapped. I mean, I said yesterday and talking with Fana, and he agreed, and he was actually the first one that really pointed it out. Like, Elijah Hawkins wasn't some like big name transfer that Texas Tech got. They beat out Kentucky for him, but you kind of look at his stat profile and kind of what he brought. He was just okay on a terrible Minnesota team. Now he's one of the better point guards in the Big 12. Doug McDaniel was an above average player on a terrible Michigan team. And now he's the one that can't see the floor because of off the court and on the court problems. That is, I think, where the problem lies with K-State right now, is that they, going back to one of Jerome Tang's first press conferences, he said, our evaluation process is going to be very thorough because if you miss on a guy and he goes somewhere else, he can beat you maybe 1 or 2 times a year. If you miss on guys that you have, they beat you every day. And you look at the last 2 seasons, K-State has missed on guys that have led to them beating them every day. There is no world where before the season, if I told you Moby Ike Garuka and Ugana Onyenso would play the same amount of games, 16 games in. And that's where they are. They both played 9 games.
To me, like, this goes to the the substitutions and just kind of lineup roulette that you talk about. I don't think there's a world in which Moby should have been playing at all this year. That should have been a guy that redshirted for K-State. I know that there could be a rare exception out there, but very rarely should a guy that's playing Division II JUCO basketball come and be playing in actual games and actual minutes. Like, he was closing out the game last night against Texas Tech, and that, it's not his fault, but he, to me, was one of those guys that when they brought him in, you go and look at it and you're like, this seems like, okay, there might be something here, but redshirt, or like, you think Byfall has played in games this year, and college basketball is not like what they have in college football. If you play one game in college basketball, you're not redshirting. And now we haven't seen him. Like, what was the point of that then? And again, maybe it's his fault that we had not seen him, and he won't be here next year, and none of that matters anyways. But when you're not even giving yourself this wiggle room to have those opportunities, it doesn't make sense to just toss guys out there and play them for no reason. And it's so strange to me, because David Castillo is a different type of story with this, where going into it, a lot of people thought that he was good enough to at least see some time this year. So a red shirt did not make sense for him. The best thing that Jerome Tang has done probably this season at this point now is what he did last night with how he handled David Castillo. And that was, hey, we're just going to play you a bunch. David Castillo tied his season high in minutes in a game at 21. He had done that against Wichita State as well. Only the 3rd time all year he played at least half of the game. That, to me, is this staff getting it in some way and realizing, okay, what we have to play for right now is really what comes in the future. We at least have to try and give guys that we think we want to have back next year. And again, it's no given that guys come back, but you got to have at least afford yourself that opportunity, because similar to what you just said in quoting Jerome Tang, okay, so what, you develop a guy and then he goes somewhere else. Like, you only have so many guys on a basketball roster. It's not like you're wasting time, developing 50 guys that may or may not ever do anything for you, or they might leave. Like, this is not a football roster. where you have to be a lot more specific with your time. And so what Jerome Tang did last night, that was the best coaching thing he did all year, was putting David Castillo out there. So I actually, anybody that complains about how K-State finished the game or how much time David Castillo got last night or any of that, I actually think like that is where you're in the wrong here. If there is one thing to not criticize Jerome Tang about, it's how he handled last night's game. Last night just was, again, a re-emphasizing of this team is not good. A lot of these players are not good. And whether it's that they don't have the talent to be good or they don't have the brain to be good, one way or the
Or
other, a
for
lot of
some of
these
them to
guys don't
want
have it.
to.
Yeah. Which
But
that to me, that's a brain thing. I think a lot of us out there, we may not want something, but we also have the brain to tell us, I'm in this with these guys. Like I owe it to them. I feel like I should give a little bit something extra for whatever reason. A lot on this team doesn't have it. And then I think some of the guys that do, they're limited. Obviously Castillo is a guy that is young. He's learning. He's going to have to get better in this. And guards they're not very good early on as freshmen in the Big 12. It's very rare to find something like that. So I think that's one of those things that I would point out. And to the other thing that you've kind of brought up with this team and how everything works out. If we want to tie this back into how we started it with pointing out what Jeff Mittie has going on, this team has had players that have not played because who knows what disciplinary reasons would be the best way to probably phrase it, just as assumption based on what has been said. And then obviously Achor Achor is not on the team anymore. Naquan Tomlin did not make it through a full season last year, even when he wasn't playing games. There's been a lot of stuff like that. And then, Coleman Hawkins says immediately after the Oklahoma State game, like, yeah, we got guys that need to take everything more serious before the game. Like there seems to not be a lot of togetherness on this team. And basketball is a sport where you kind of need that. Like you are in a flow with each other out there. This is not baseball where if the ball is hit to you, it's on you. And yeah, the first baseman has to catch it if you're in the infield, but he's not going to let a ball thrown at 95 miles an hour across the diamond smack him in the head because he doesn't like you or something. Like you don't really have to be in sync. Football, yeah, quarterback, receiver, they kind of have to be on the same page. But if you're open, the quarterback will throw you the ball and you will catch it, and it's all off from there. Like there are things where you have to be together. Basketball, though, it is 100% of the time. You cannot win a basketball game going 40 minutes with just one guy trying to do this by himself or multiple guys trying to do this by themselves. You got to be in sync. And this team has not felt in sync in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't feel like they're together, where then you look at on the other side of it, I know people laugh at the gap goat thing. It is very, very funny. But what that has illustrated over the last 2 years now for K-State women's basketball is that something that is that funny and kind of just like this little inside joke type of thing, they are all together enough to play along with it, enjoy it. And that is a team that seems like, for the most part, they all get along. Now, look, do we know the ins and outs? I'm sure it's like anything. Yeah, there are probably some that are like, I'm not going to talk to you. You're not going to, whatever. But you can get through little stuff like that. You don't all have to be best friends, but you certainly can't all seem like you're working towards something else. And the K-State men's basketball team all year has had a lot of different players that seem like they have their own agendas, where at the end of the day, I think goal number one for everybody on the K-State women's basketball team is winning games. And probably it starts with winning the Big 12 and then making it to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament and then making it to the Final Four. Like, I think they are very team goal oriented based on the way that they play and the way that they act. And look, it is easier to do that when you're winning games. I understand that. But you look at how all this is played out, I think that you can't get by on just winning for that to come off. That's just how it all looks. I think that is a genuine thing that they have going on there, whereas obviously the K-State men are completely lost right now. And probably we won't know if they're going to find their way until next season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Even when the K-State men's team was winning, you could tell that there was something going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and it's not, it's not like they were winning in impressive ways or against good teams. They're still their best win of the season. They finally got Cincinnati, but it's like I say, was that one game or is that going to be who you are? Because it's really impossible for a basketball team to lose every single game. And I know Missouri found a way to do it last year in the SEC. I'm still blown away by that, but it was not going to happen for K-State this year. And that's why, like, if they won last night against Texas Tech, who cares? That it would not have impressed me if K-State had won that game last night. It will not impress me. There's not a thing K-State can do that will impress me this season, unless it's, they win 5 games in 5 days in Kansas City in March to go to the NCAA tournament. Then I would maybe go, that's pretty impressive to do that. But that isn't happening, and it's questionable on if K-State wins 5 games the rest of the season. So that's going to be your selling point to tell you you can watch if you want to, but I would just check the box score to see if David Castillo's improving a little bit, see who randomly got inserted to the lineup, who got yanked for whatever reason, and probably put a little bit more of your watching power during the week into the K-State women, who, by the way, they play tomorrow night at home against Arizona's 6:30 tip-off on ESPN Plus. So it's an Arizona team that, had been good the past couple of years, but I say past couple, you got to go back a few, and then leading up to this year, they kind of dropped off a little bit more. So I would expect another 20-point K-State win tomorrow, because as we've talked about, that was the first thing last year where it signaled to me when K-State was on their ascent to being the number 2 team in the country, is that they were just beating the crap out of teams that you should beat the crap out of. And that is the name of the game in women's basketball. And I know that the parity's starting to get a little bit better. It's still a pretty haves versus have-nots type of deal. And the K-State women certainly have it right now. So props to Jeff Mittie and all the players over there and what they've got going on. So they play Arizona tomorrow night in Bramlage.
Yeah, and like you said, I'd expect another at least double-digit win. 17 double-digit wins to start the season. That's pretty dang good.
Yep, it's a good start for them. All right, we'll get ready to get out of here. But before we do, a reminder, if you are looking to get over to Ireland in just over 7 months from now for the start of the college football season, you can go to cats2ireland.com to get your tickets, hospitality packages, everything that you need to get to Ireland, watch the game, and enjoy it in style. You can do it with cats2ireland.com to see K-State take on Iowa State in week 0. And it's going to be a good time over there. We will all be over there ready to watch K-State and the Clones in the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. So get on that and do it. And we'll be back. I'll try to get something put together. I don't know. I can't make promises because of stuff going on Thursday and Friday. But Drew and I will definitely have post-game reaction in Lawrence on Saturday. And then we'll get together a Sunday show as well this week. That is a promise as well. And then normal week next week, I think, as long as nobody gets sick or nothing else happens to anybody. So be on the lookout for what you're normally accustomed to from K-State Online. But nothing is slowed down over at KSO. So go to On3, get signed up there if you're not. And if you're already a member of KSO, then you know that everything's been cranked out like normal, and you can get all the recruiting updates that are starting to slow down a little bit just because K-State done in the transfer portal, Drew.
Probably one more spot.
All right, one more spot, says Drew. So just keep every day, every minute refreshing KSO to see if they filled that one spot that Drew says they have left, and track everything else that goes on with K-State and the football portal as well. So for Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thanks for watching and listening to K-State Online. We are out of here. Talk to you again Saturday from disgusting Lawrence, Kansas.